Before this video starts, if you enjoy this video, there are many more like it already on the channel, with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. I upload almost daily on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent basketball talk, this is the place for it. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second, and it makes a massive difference. Today, we are talking about the NBA's plans for a second bubble for the non-playoff teams. If you are not aware, the NBA is planning to do a second bubble in Chicago, where the teams that were not selected to go to the bubble in Orlando are going to play, I believe it's 8 regular season games like everybody else. I can't imagine it would be more. And I really do not understand why the NBA would do this at all. Now, we can speculate on why. There are definitely a few reasons that potentially could be why, but the reasons I don't believe justify actually going through with this. So for some of that speculation, as for financial incentives, they probably have a contract. I remember seeing something about this when the virus initially struck, where like the contracts they had with the different networks required that they play a certain amount of regular season games on national television, and maybe they're trying to fill that up with these games. However, unless there are some serious legal consequences, which I doubt those TV companies would be able to hold up, being that the virus is what stopped the season, unless there are serious financial hits that could happen from this, I seriously doubt that they're going to get more money than they lose by going through with this. Making another bubble in Chicago is not going to be cheap. Making the bubble in Orlando has not been cheap. I believe they said something like it will cost a couple $1 million a day. Not cheap, and I seriously doubt that the NBA televising games with a bunch of bad teams that everyone knows have no chance at making the playoffs, I doubt those games are going to make up millions of dollars a day. Maybe 1 or 2, but not nearly to the extent that they need to. Like, I understand if you have to fulfill a TV contract, but I imagine the financial negatives that come with that are still going to be less of a negative than forcing this bubble to happen and playing out these games that no one is going to be watching, especially because the actual bubble in Orlando is already going to be going on, so why would you watch these games unless you're a fan of the team? And I can tell you right now, as a Bulls fan, I don't know if everyone else is like this, but when my team is really bad and I've come to the conclusion that there is no improvement for the rest of the year, I pretty much stop watching unless some development happens within the team with a trade, or like, let's say they finally start Kobe White, things of that nature. But I know that I'm not going to watch these games. I might watch the highlights. As a matter of fact, I definitely will watch the highlights, but I don't give a shit to actually tune in to any of these games. I don't want to watch these teams play each other, and I don't want to watch my team play as is, so I'm not interested. And also, I find this odd with how the lottery is going to work, because I realized that was a concern with the NBA's original bubble plan in Orlando, because the thing was the teams that are going to miss the playoffs are going to have a few more losses on the record, so that might lower their win percentage, and that could result in them actually getting a better lottery odds when the teams did not get to play in the first place. But the thing about that is, those teams that were higher, closer to the 8th seed in the playoffs, that are going to be playing some of the good teams, they're going to get a lot more losses. But the teams that are out in the second bubble, because their competition is quite significantly lower, there are teams that are going to be like the Chicago Bulls, or let's say, who's another really good team that's not really good, but really good relative to their competition. I don't know, a team like the Bulls. I think the Kings were invited the second bubble, but like a team like the Bulls or the Charlotte Hornets, that are probably the best of the worst teams, I seriously doubt that they're going to be having a losing record when they leave this stint. Like, the Bulls might end up having a 500 record to close out their time in in Chicago, and because of that, their win percentage is going to go up, so their lottery odds are going to be worse regardless. So because the competition as a whole is down, it's still going to lead to funky win percentages and lead to a funky lottery. So this is not a solution to the potential issues with the lottery that were going to come from Orlando happening. These teams playing these games against lower competition than the average competition is not going to make things better. If anything, it's going to make things more confusing and make people complain about it being more unfair than it already was going to be. So this is not a positive thing for the lottery whatsoever, so you gotta throw that out as a wash. That's not it. And then why take the risk with your players? Like, again, as I've mentioned before, and I feel like people forget too much, doing this during the COVID-19 crisis is going to be a risk. It is an issue, especially with some of the coaches. There are older coaches in the league that are going to have to attend these things. There are older staff members, things like that. These players are going to want to see their families, though they don't have to do the whole playoffs, and I'm assuming it's only 8 regular season games. There is still risk here of giving your players a virus, helping spread it, and people actually ending up dying because of this. Now, I do think if they were always planning on playing 8 regular season games for every team in the league, it was smart to separate these teams into the non-playoff teams and the playoff or potential playoff teams, just because the less teams that are there in Orlando, the less risk it is for the big names and the big teams and the teams that are actual contenders, and just less of a risk of that being an issue in general, because the less people, the lower the risk. But 1, this is still a risk, and 2, while yes, you are mitigating the risk for some of the top teams, I don't think it's fair to really give that to the top teams, and then the less teams are like, we don't really care if you get the virus nearly as much. And the likelihood of spreading it with these games is down, but it's still important. And as I mentioned earlier, who's going to watch? So that's one thing. But also what's most important here is, why would the teams take this seriously? There's an old episode of South Park where they were playing baseball during the summer, and nobody on any baseball team wanted to play because they found the game boring. So they ended up fighting the hardest to see who could lose the worst, and every team was trying to lose. That's essentially what's going to be happening here. That's essentially what's going to be televised, is teams trying to lose because they have no incentive to keep playing, other than a few scrappy young players or a few role players who are looking to get bigger contracts. But even then, with the competition being down, I doubt teams are going to take that nearly as seriously as they would under normal circumstances. So like, the amount of people that are really going to be trying their hardest in this thing, the amount of players that are going to be trying their hardest, is very, very minimal. Like, most teams are going to be tanking. A lot of guys are not going to be attending this thing. Already that's happening with Orlando, with playoff teams, with guys like Victor Oladipo deciding to step out. Like, there are going to be big names of these teams not playing, whatever those big names may be, some of the younger guys in the league, and those teams are going to be even worse without those top tier guys. So what is the product that you want people to watch here? It's basically like going to be live G League teams playing, and nobody wants to see that. This is really going to be a televised race to the bottom. And again, the financial aspect of this, I don't see where the positive is, because nobody's going to want to watch that race to the bottom, especially when what's happening in Orlando is going to be happening at the same time. There's a clearly way better product out there for me to consume. Why would I watch the Bulls and Cleveland Cavaliers play when I can watch the Clippers and Nuggets, or whatever the hell the game is going to be? Like, it seems pointless to me to play these games from a viewer perspective and from the NBA's perspective. Now, again, there is a chance they could go to court over some serious conflict with them not having played these games. But I don't know the legal basis of it, and I'm no financial expert whatsoever, but I doubt the NBA would tank because of that, and I doubt it would be any worse than the financial loss they're going to take by doing this bubble. Maybe there's stuff that I don't know and I'm not considering, and this is actually going to be just fine, but I guess we should consider the other side of this with no games. So there's the lottery thing. I think the lottery thing without these bad teams playing these games is better, because if anything, it's going to inflate some of the better bad teams and make the worst bad teams even worse. And because the competition as a whole is not the same as the league as a whole, it's going to really fuck with where this lottery is. Now, it's a good thing that the 2020 draft doesn't seem to be a draft that has too many big names in it, big superstar future players. So as a result, I don't think people would be nearly as pissed as if, let's say, this was happening last year and Zion and Ja Morant were both top of the lottery, and like a team that should not have had the record they had ends up getting the lottery pick they do because of these weird circumstances. That could have a lot of people very mad, especially fans of bad teams like myself. So it's a good thing that this year it's like, okay, this is a fight for who gets Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, who are both really good prospects, but it's not earth-shattering type of stuff. But I think from the lottery standpoint, no games would be better than these games. And then I think from the viewer standpoint, no games, again, better than these games, because I don't want to watch my team continue to suck. And for people who are not fans of these bad teams, why would they ever watch them play? A lot of the young, it's not for young players, because a lot of the young players are on good teams. Most of them are in Orlando. So I don't think that from the viewer makes sense. And then again, financially, I could be missing something. I don't know all of the details, but it just seems like it'd be a loss regardless to me. Maybe a smaller loss than if they got sued over their TV deal. But I also feel like that TV company would not be able to win that one because of the weird circumstances of this virus. So that's why I think this is stupid. I really don't see any of the positive here. All this is a race to the bottom with bad teams that no one's going to watch, with a bunch of risk that is not necessary for a product no one wants to consume, and I don't really even see the financial benefits of it for the NBA. But that is why I think this is stupid. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.